The war in Ukraine changed a lot of things. It also changed the way we see weapons. At the beginning, the Javelin missile was a big promise. Everyone called it a miracle weapon. News and social media were full of praise for the Javelin. It seemed like the weapon that could stop the Russian army. But war is complicated. Things are not always what they seem. The Javelin is good, but it's not a magic solution. The truth is that the Javelin is not the Holy Grail. It's not a magic solution for all problems. Experts now say its success rate is lower than we thought, closer to 20% of Russian tanks destroyed. So, the Javelin is not the ultimate solution. It's just a tool in a huge toolbox.
The
truth is that war is an extremely complex activity, and it requires different weapons for different missions. About 12,000 Javelin missiles have been sent to the Ukrainian armed forces in these nearly 3 years of war. So we need to remember that right at the beginning, when the Javelin started being used, the press nicknamed it Saint Javelin. Posters appeared in Ukrainian cities like the one you see there. However, after the hype, it was said that the Russian armored force was being wiped out. What we are seeing today is that the Javelins probably only hit 20% of their targets, which is worse. A large number of these missiles have been captured by Russian forces and are being distributed to their allies around the world, mainly to one of the countries with one of the largest reverse military engineering capabilities on the planet, which is Iran. I need to remind you that Iran has already developed its local version of the Israeli Spike missile. But let's learn a little more about the performance of the Javelins in Ukraine. We'll talk more about this missile shortly. War is expensive. This is true for all countries, but especially for Ukraine. The Javelin is a great weapon, but it comes at a high price. Each missile costs more than $200,000. It's a lot of money for something that might not even hit the target.
Dinheiro para algo que pode nem atingir o alvo. Compare isso com drone, que pode custar apenas.
Compare this with a drone, which can cost only $500. Obviously, the Ukrainians need to be smart about how they spend their money. That's why they are using a combination of expensive weapons, like javelins, and cheaper options, like drones. It's all about finding the right balance, just like we do with the household budget at the end of the month. The Javelin missile began development in 1989 and entered service in the United States Armed Forces in 1996. It has a command and launch unit called CLU and the missile itself. The Javelin has a range of 65 to 4,000 meters. Its caliber is approximately 12.7 centimeters. And it uses its warhead of the heat type, high-explosive anti-tank. About 50,000 Javelin missiles and some 12,000 CLUs, which is the command and launch unit, have been produced. I need to remind you that so far the Javelin is a sales success. Dozens of countries, including Brazil, have intentions to acquire it. But with the data now coming from the war in Ukraine, I believe a lot will emerge in the coming months. The missile has already lost that aura of infallibility. Something is happening here as well, due to various factors. Problems, like logistical problems, logistical issues, sometimes operator failure, insufficiently trained personnel, some doctrinal issues, the speed of some Russian advances, which allowed a large quantity of Javelin missiles, mainly from British stocks, to fall into Russian hands. So the Russians will pass on this technology, especially the CLU, which is that sighting system, the launcher, that can be used for day or night operations. I'll leave a video from AITL here, and they talk about the use of this sighting system. So what happens is this. Was the Javelin a good missile?
O Javelin era bom míssil? Sim, mas nós precisamos lembrar que os americanos usaram.
Yes, but we need to remember that the Americans used these weapons in Iraq, used them in Afghanistan, against armies that did not have the technological capability that Russia has, nor the quantity. the speed of fire response that the Russians have. So initially, logically, its level of accuracy will be degraded. But let's take a look at some learning outcomes we have from the performance of the Javelin and other weapons in the war in Ukraine up to now, up to today. The war in Ukraine is a warning. It shows that the future of warfare will be different. We will see more drones, more high-tech devices, and more creative tactics. The Javelin may soon be old news.
O Javelin pode ser notícia velha em breve. Já existem armas mais novas, mais baratas e mais...
There are already newer, cheaper, and more effective weapons being developed. However, no matter how much the Ukrainians strive to seek new technologies, time is working against their army, especially now with President Trump's return to the White House in the United States of America. Well, folks, that was our video for today. Those who watched, leave your questions. What do you think of the Javelin? What technologies do you think will emerge in the future? Will Iran be able to develop its counterpart? Because the war in Ukraine has actually completely transformed the battlefield, mainly due to the advent of mass drones.
Principalmente pelo advento dos drones em massa, né? Os drones hoje eles fazem aí trabalho.
Drones today are doing a very effective job in war, and this wasn't anticipated. Perhaps the war in Ukraine is the adult phase of drones. They had already shown good performance in the war between Azerbaijan and Armenia shortly before the war in Ukraine, but now they have reached maturity. I need to remind you that we have several courses here from the Arte de Guerra channel. I'll leave our course on Russia's wars for you. The instructors are Colonel Coutinho, Albert, and myself, and get to know the Arte de Guerra channel's school folks. There's a lot of good stuff there. We'll be back shortly, always with responsibility and commitment. Stay in Brazil, folks. See you later. Well, folks, I'll leave in the link in the description of this video our entire line of books about Ukraine, available on Amazon. There's a lot in various languages and formats as well. You'll find things on Kindle, in print format, right? What happens is that Amazon delivers very quickly, especially for those who live here in the capital, São Paulo. It also accepts payment by boleto, credit card, installment plans, etc. And I remind you, every time you buy books and other items on Amazon, you are supporting the Arte de Guerra channel. Captioned by Sonia Roberti.